the linear function at you, and I threw the absolute value function. Today, out of the four, quadratic, constant, linear, absolute, we're going to focus on two of them, namely linear and absolute, just for a little while. We're going to focus just on those two out of the four. Okay? Linear function on your note guide, go ahead and write this with me. The linear function is f of x. The parent is f of x equals x. So write that down. Right underneath yours. Can you pass it out already?
No, you didn't.
Everyone's like staring at me. So linear function, underneath the word linear function, f of x equals x. If you guys talk again when I'm talking, tomorrow, whoever sits there first gets dibs, someone else can sit over here between you two, just so that you know. F of x equals x is linear. That's the parent. We went over the last Wednesday or Tuesday. Go ahead and write that in there. And let's do the parent of an absolute value. F of x equals absolute value of x. What's the effect of that? Well, there is no effect because these are the parents. Go ahead and write parents. These are the parents function. Put that in there for me. The parents have children. How do the children look? Here we go. The first kind of transformation we can do to the child is a horizontal shift. Get my paper here. So we're going to write f of x equals x minus h in parentheses though. X minus h. I apologize. I got some seats up here, you don't mind. Do what you can. Work with me, I'm sorry. So f of x equals x, there's a parent minus an h. Let's call this value h. H can be any value. Let's do the same with the absolute value. X minus h. Notice how h is inside the grouping symbols. What takes place there? Let's see. If I subtracted h, what's that going to do? What's the effect going to be to the parent if I put an h here, subtract it inside the grouping symbols? Here's what's going to happen. It's going to be a horizontal. I'll write this down. Horizontal translation. Horizontal translation. You have to write kind of small to fit all this crap in here. To the right, h units. Whatever that number is, remember we saw that yesterday when we put 2? We moved the absolute value to the left twice or to the right twice just because we put a plus or a minus. Horizontal translation to the right, h units. Or left, if h is positive. If h is positive. Let me move this down here. I'm going to be having a nasty time. If h is positive. Is positive. Okay? So far, so good. So if that h is positive, we're moving to the left, the graph. If the h is negative, as the way you see it, it's going to move to the right, whatever the number is, whatever h is. So that's a horizontal translation, we call it. Next kind of transformation, watch this now. F of x equals x plus k. So when you have the parent function, you add some value k. Or how about for absolute value? Parent function. Here's your parent. Now let's add k. What the heck happens now? What does happen? Well, let's see. Just watch my screen, since you don't have a smart board. F of x equals absolute value of x Ayala, what's your favorite number? 2. Look, I'm going to put plus k. Look at plus k, I'll put a plus 2. Ayala's favorite number. Plus 2. So notice how it went up. It's a vertical translation, not horizontal, it's a vertical translation. So let's get back to the guide. Again, Math 2 students should remember this from last year as a review. So let's go to write vertical translation. That's up and down, not left to right. The first one's left to right. Now we're doing vertical translation. K units upward. Upward K units. Or downward if K is what? Gracias. We're rocking and rolling. So far, so good. So this is, you're kind of familiar with this already. I've kind of primed you already, prepped you for this lesson. Let's get into the next one. Linear. Check this out now. What if we put a negative in front of x? Put parentheses around the x for now. What if we put a negative around the x on a linear parent function? And let's do the same for the absolute value parent function. What if we put a negative in front of that x? Watch what happens. Let me try it. So let me go to my graph. So let me take this graph, copy and paste this puppy. Now let me put a negative outside the grouping symbol. In other words, outside the absolute value symbol. Watch what happens. Good. Look at the negative. What happened? What took place? Over what? The x-axis or the y-axis? Did it flip this way or did it flip that way? X-axis, huh? So notice, when I place a negative right there, it flips over the x-axis. So that's the effect. The effect of that is a reflection over the x-axis. Get that down. Reflection over x-axis. Sometimes books will say in. Instead of over, they'll say the word in x-axis. It means the same thing. You'll see. You can write both, but I think the textbook uses the word in, reflection in x-axis or over x-axis. I forget what it states, but you'll see both as you progress into your college years. So far, so good. Last one for today. Before I do the last one, let me prep this here. -5. Actually, go with -10. So look what I did. I put x minus 10, there's an h value. Look at, that was the first one we did. Look at, I put a minus h, and it's a horizontal translation to the right 10 units. Look at, that's what I did. Right now you're just paying attention. So look what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put a negative in front of the x inside the grouping symbol. In other words, write this down in your note guide. F of x the function of x equals, watch this, inside the grouping symbol now. Notice the negative was once outside, now it's inside. Let's do the same with the absolute value parent. Look at negative x inside that absolute value. It makes a difference. You'll see the difference right now. Let me do it. Watch. So look at, here's the original. F of x equals x minus 10. You see it? There's a vertical translation, 10 units here. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. Look at when I put a negative inside now. Let me erase this one. I'm going to copy and paste this puppy right here. Watch me put a negative in front of this x on the blue. Watch. Look what happens. Look what took place. Here's the original in red. I put a negative in front of the x, and now it reflected it over what axis? The y-axis. So when you have a negative inside grouping symbols, that means you're taking every input and immediately multiplying it by -1. That's going to flip the graph over the y-axis instead of over the x-axis. So it's going to write reflection over y-axis. You want to write nice and neat because you're going to be referring to this on this week's quiz. You'll see all these transformations and you'll have your notes ready. It's always open note and we're going to bang it out. Cool? Sweetness.